it's time for the final part of the video, which is of course the building. Just quickly looking at the instructions, the first part of the instructions will be to put the pressurized pyrium petrol gas injector to the fusion reactant chamber and the primary ignition chamber. So just leaving this slightly out of your view, but in my view, I have here my two-part epoxy, of course, 151. A dish to have the epoxy in, because remember, epoxy is a nightmare to remove from things, so you need to be very careful with that. There's also pincers to help manipulate things, because you do not want this stuff on your fingers, so anything to avoid contact with your fingers is perfect. And of course I have my pieces ready. So first of all, we're going to just, without putting any glue on, you want to make sure the pieces will actually fit together first, because you may need to unwarp them. Just quickly looking at the instructions one more time. The chamber's like this. Yes, then the part goes here. Like this. There we go. Then the ignition chamber is here. So this part goes here, this part goes here, this part goes here, like this. There we go. So now I know this fits together quite nicely without glue. I can start seeing if there's any gaps. Does it look like there's any, I think this gap here is meant to be there to separate these two pieces, because this is quite nicely fitting. It looks pretty straight to me, pretty good. There's also not much moving around. I don't know which piece to do first. I think I would do this bit first, because then look, you can slot this bit up here, like so. So if I was doing this from scratch, I would definitely do these two pieces first, if I was doing them in order. I wouldn't bother doing this in parts painting-wise, because it feels like you can quite easily get into these gaps, at least I can, so I don't see the issue with spraying this as one unit. It looks like there's very little gaps here, nothing that warrants any extra, detailing or removal of lines. Same this end, very smooth looking. So I'm going to add my first piece of glue now. If you're using this product, I recommend doing 1 part of each. And just remember that this is incredibly sticky, so do not wear any fancy clothes or anything expensive nearby. I have just managed to cover my hands in it as I say that, but it should be okay. There we go. You really want quite a lot of this setting stuff as well, because I find that it does take quite a while to actually set. Otherwise, mix it up quite nicely. There we go. Just to wipe this off my trousers, because I don't want to give any glue to the model I don't need. Scoop out quite a generous amount, because you can afford to do this. And just lather, like so. Just lather a healthy amount. You don't want it to you don't want to put so much on that it squeezes out the edges, so just put on enough that you're comfortable with. Take the second piece. Remember where it is. You see this aligns quite well. Then we simply want to fit it in place, hold it there, and make sure these two pieces align for, consistency. This looks good on this end. It looks good on this end. I would say this is ready to dry. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave this be. This looks pretty good to me, at least. Yep, what do you guys think? That looks pretty good to me. Front's pretty fine too. I'm just going to leave this to dry for a while. There we go. If it has trouble sticking, then that's probably an indication that I needed to spend more time drying off. So I'm leaving that be for now. Then I will eventually attach the frontal section here. In fact, I might be able to do that immediately. Let me see. Yes, I think I can actually attach this now, as it is. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I also don't want to waste too much of this. It's not horribly expensive, but I just don't like wasting things, so Put some more epoxy. Again, be careful, of course. More careful than I am, at least. Grab your model and just slot it into place like this. And this shouldn't have any issues. I'm liking how this is going so far. Just gonna leave this as it is. Hopefully this doesn't do anything crazy. It's looking pretty strong. You need to remember, unlike super glue or plastic glue, two-part epoxy, unless it's fast drying, tends to be quite non-sticky. It sticks to your fingers well, but it doesn't stick to the model well. So if you have an overhanging piece like this one here, it can actually, as it's drying, move, displace, or entirely come off, because whilst it's drying in the first hour or so, most two-part epoxies are very, very loose gripping. So look, this one's already slipping off. So I would advise, I've seen online people using rubber bands like tied around two pieces to physically keep them held together. I'm going to do that later on probably. Also, clamps are pretty good, cheap clamps so you don't mind getting glue on, because it may run and obviously ruin the instrument, so make sure it's not too expensive. As it's going, this is pretty good so far. You don't need to do anything absolutely crazy because, of course, it's just... in fact, I might try and prop this as such. Like, there we go. Ah. As I was saying, it's very, very, very loose fitting, so you want to make sure that you have a system that can hold it in place. Unlike me, actually, that could be quite nice like this. I'm going to leave it like that because that's gravity's doing the work for me here. Moving on to the guns. The guns are actually pretty good looking so far. I really like how they look. I like how these plasma coils are actually similar to the ones on other plasma weaponry, which isn't usually seen on Melta weapons. They're usually hidden or concealed, or just not shown. This part's obviously very Melta-ish, but the back part is very plasma-ish, which is quite interesting because they are both plasma weapons. Maybe this one has more of a plasma effect, I'm not entirely sure, although it is meant to be mainly heat rather than electricity. You know, hence the name Melta. I'm liking how this is going so far. What I'm doing now is something I recommend you do too. Whilst it's still setting, as I said, it can slip around a bit, two-part epoxy, so I'd definitely routinely check up on it. If you hear something falling, definitely make sure it's not your model, because it probably is. Ideally, I would have set up some sort of apparatus to keep it in place, because right now I'm having to eyeball it and very, very carefully look after it. So until the first hour or so is done, you do need to be very careful. So I'm going to stop the video here and just make sure it stays good, because this could take a very, very long time. I'll see you guys in a second. Thank you.